You are listening to the Monday Night War Review, where Frankincensed, Big Business, and Big Tex chronologically review the Monday Night Wars from 1995 to 2001 between WCW Nitro and WWF Monday Night Raw. Join us for this roller coaster ride of nostalgia and hilarity.
It's my life in the box in front of me. Taking talk in my arms is the soul of me. You walk by, ask to see me laying face down.
Alright, welcome to the Monday Night War Review. I am Frankincensed. I'm here with my friends Big Business and Big Tex. Tonight, we are reviewing the October 9th, 1995 episodes of WCW Monday Nitro and WWF Monday Night Raw. Currently, we're all dealing with the coronavirus in 2020 here. It's kind of a good time to be watching some old school wrestling. You know, everyone's cooped up in their houses. They're on their quarantines. Right now, shows like Raw and SmackDown and AEW Dynamite are doing their shows with no fans, which is very, very strange. But they're doing very well in the ratings because there's no other sports on TV or anything. Kind of a weird time for everybody, but hopefully we can help you escape and go back in time. Our episode of Nitro tonight has Ric Flair and Arn Anderson in a steel cage for its main event, and that is going up against a six-man tag match on Raw that has The Undertaker, Diesel, and Shawn Michaels versus Yokozuna, Owen, Hart, and the British Bulldog. General impressions on these shows before we dive in, guys?
I did like Nitro more. I'm just going to lead with that.
Nitro was better, but overall, not the greatest week.
So Nitro was in Chicago, Illinois. So Mongo is having kind of a homecoming as a former Chicago Bears player. Nitro has Bischoff, Mongo, and Heenan on commentary as usual. It did a 2.6 in the TV ratings. It starts with a recap of Hogan getting attacked by Grandma Taskmaster, Zodiac, and the Giant. The three commentators are all wearing Chicago Bears jerseys. I enjoyed that Heenan's had a question mark instead of a number. I enjoyed that little detail. And then Sting comes out to the announce table, basically saying how unbelievable Nitro is, and he's fed up with the Luger-Savage conflict, and he says that it needs to be resolved, and he will be the man to take care of that tonight. Bobby Heenan also brings up the restraining order that has been put in place, where the Giant has to stay away from Hogan, and Giant is even banned from the building. What do you guys think of Sting's little promo, and what do you think of the restraining order?
I just like the concept of the restraining order. I would like to read what they actually put together, and the fact that they just keep breaking Hulk Hogan's neck.
Well, is Sting trying to solve the problem with Luger and Macho just because he's friends with those guys? I mean, I know he's friends with Luger. I just don't get the motivation here totally.
Yeah, I think that's generally the idea. Like, Sting is like the purest of all of the baby faces in the company, I would say. Like, I would say even more so than like Hogan. Like, Sting is viewed as like the guy who's like so like kind and righteous, and so I think he's the kind of guy who's going to be playing negotiator and peacemaker between these two guys that are both his friends. Yeah, I think that's generally the idea. But as we'll see, he kind of goes about it in a little bit of a weird way later in the show. So the first match we get is The Shark versus Sting for the U.S. title. Thought it was pretty funny that they said the Shark was from Tsunami. I thought that was pretty funny. And they claimed that he weighed 500 pounds, which I also thought was bullshit. First of all, that dude does not weigh 500 pounds. And then just say that he hails from Tsunami, I thought was pretty funny. I also noticed this thing when Sting came out to the ring. He was kind of like off camera for a second, and then he like popped up on camera. And then you could hear him saying, "Ha ha, I snuck up on ya." And then he goes, "'Cause I'm a sneaky kind of guy." And I was like, that was a really weird moment from Sting. The match itself is pretty short. You know, Shark gets the heat on Sting in the beginning. Like, he body slams him, gives him a leg drop. You know, he swings him into the corner, but then Sting moves, and the Shark hits the turnbuckle. And then Sting hits some stinger splashes, and he flies off the top rope, and he beats the Shark with a flying crossbody for the win. It probably was like, I don't know, 3 minutes long. Might even been shorter than that. I wasn't like hoping for anything too special here, but this was even more of a non-match than I kind of even anticipated. Not to bury it before you guys weigh in, but what did you guys think of Shark versus Sting?
Sometimes it's nice just to have a pretty clear and decisive victory for the one side. So, short, non-event, but still enjoyable.
Like you said, the expectations for this match, especially as far as the Shark is concerned, I wasn't expecting like a 20-minute classic here. So, I gave it 1.5 stars. I don't really think the star rating mattered. It was such a short match. Sting wound up looking pretty good with the high crossbody off the top.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel bad for John Tenta, the guy who is the Shark. Like, I just feel like when he was Earthquake and WWF, he was taken a lot more legitimately, and I think rightfully so, because I've always thought he was a pretty good worker, especially for his size. But yeah, he's just kind of a goon in the Dungeon of Goons.
Was that for the U.S. title?
It was.
Okay. Wow.
I know. I think they could have put somebody up a little bit more serious than that. Yeah, it's kind of throwaway. Yeah, they knew Sting was doing double duty tonight with his promo later, I guess. Then they recap again last week's interview with Hogan getting attacked by the Dungeon of Doom and the Giant re-injuring his neck. They're definitely really pushing it. It's the second time they've covered it in the show. Then they do a Halloween Havoc ad to continue to push the Giant Hogan match we're eventually going to get at that pay-per-view. The second match we get for the night is Sabu versus Mr. JL. And all they really say about Mr. JL, they're like, this is a newcomer, his name is Mr. JL, he's a very mysterious man, and that's all we know about him. Like, they literally just said, that's all we know about him. But I figured Mr. JL would be a decent person to fit the slot of Jobber Watch for tonight. So, Tex, what do you happen to know about Mr. JL?
Yeah, so Mr. JL, he's actually Jerry Lynn from ECW, and if anyone who's familiar with ECW knows that Jerry Lynn was pretty much the opposite of a jobber. He was one of their best workers. He would have great matches with guys like Rob Van Dam, Sabu, and plenty of other top-notch guys in ECW. In this match, I noticed some of the signature moves that he would eventually start using in ECW. So I thought that was pretty cool. He's got like the goofy attire, and he ends up jobbing out to Sabu in this match.
Yeah, I don't know what WCW was thinking with him. I think they were smart to do the whole cruiserweight thing and to like really take their mid-card seriously in that way. But then just throwing Jerry Lynn in this kind of goofy mask and this goofy outfit and giving him literally no backstory other than he's a very mysterious man and that's all we know about him. And then from what I can tell, he never won anything. I was kind of reading about it. It just seems like Mr. JL just kind of constantly jobbed to the other cruiserweights and stuff. So yeah, poor Jerry Lynn. I don't think his WCW run was the most memorable part of his career. Mongo has a line when he's talking about the moment where Sting came out, and he says that Heenan was shaking when Sting had come out. And he says, I haven't seen quivering like that since I dropped Jell-O on the floor. And I was like, that's a really weird, I just thought that was some real hillbilly shit that he said. What kind of simile is that?
Classic Mongo.
Yeah, I think he was probably pretty proud of himself when he thought of that line, but it was just so, it's just forced. It felt forced. I loved how we got a Sabu chant from the crowd, and then it was followed by a Hogan sucks chant. I had to kind of rewind it and turn up the volume a few times, but I feel like I definitely heard this Hogan sucks chant, and I thought that was pretty funny, and not the first time we've seen the crowd be a little lukewarm on Hogan, so you can kind of you can see the seeds being planted for that heel turn. Typical Sabu stuff. There were suicide dives. He did his little running chair spot on the outside. All kinds of springboard moves. All kinds of somersaulting moves. Man, this one move that Mr. JL did to Sabu, he was kind of hanging Sabu off of the the top rope, like near the turnbuckle, and then he kind of did like this hanging DDT brainbuster thing, and Sabu just lands on his head. It looked like vicious. It kind of reminded me of what Scott Norton did to Macho Man in that one match. Like it was kind of similar, and I was like, damn, that move, that just looks painful. So Sabu either botched a Super Hurricane Rana, or maybe that was part of the plan, was that Mr. JL was going to like hold on and block it or something, but Sabu goes for the Super Hurricane Rana and misses it. But then Sabu catches JL in a power bomb when JL comes off the ropes, and then he slaps on the camel clutch, and that's it. He submits. But then after the match, Sabu keeps beating on him, kind of like he did when he was facing Alex Wright. And he gives JL a sunset flip power bomb from the apron to the concrete floor just for good measure. And then apparently he continues to attack Mr. JL in the background while the commentators are yammering on about Hogan. Sabu's awesome, man. Sabu's awesome. I hope we actually get some kind of like, even if it's really short, I hope we get some like promos from Sabu where he just acts crazy, and like I just think his in-ring work is awesome, even if sometimes he will have a botch or two, or I just always believe that he's giving like 1,000% to like every match that he's in, and he just is so gung-ho and all in. And
it looked like he had some chemistry already with JL, because they were pulling off, like they were going back and forth. I mean, JL had, you know, like you said, the hanging DDT. He had a German suplex near fall that was really nice. So he was getting some of his stuff in there. We didn't see his signature cradle pile driver, but you know, that's okay.
Ugh.
But yeah, it's
sick move.
Good match.
Business. Any thoughts on Sabu and Mr. JL?
Yeah, not much beyond what you guys are saying. I mean, how much longer do you think we have Sabu at this point?
When he first came in, I thought it was just going to be like a couple weeks, but it actually sounds like it's a little bit of a prolonged stay. You know, since we're going like week to week with the shows, like, you know, I think we're going to see at least like a half dozen more matches. I don't know. I could just see him being around for the rest of this year in 1995 too. Like, I'm not quite sure, but
you know, all of his matches, it is something different within the context of WCW, which is like a nice change of pace when they happen.
Yeah, and I think that's an advantage that WCW has over WWF right now, is I just think WWF's mid-card is just not so great. I mean, we get things like Razor Ramon and 1-2-3 Kid and stuff, and that's pretty nice, but you know, as we'll see later, we also get stuff like Fatu and Skip. I mean, I'd much rather watch Jerry Lynn and Sabu. And I even think that Sabu and Mr. JL was probably the best match on Nitro. And in my opinion, maybe even the best match on either two shows. So after this, we have Mean Gene in the ring with Sting and Luger. Luger's wearing a sport coat, which is kind of unusual. Sting wants the Macho Man to come out so him and Luger can make up. Sting calms down Savage at first, because Savage is doing his whole typical, I'm paranoid, I don't trust anybody, everybody's against me. Sting wants them to band together to stop the Giant from chokeslamming everyone, and Savage wonders why Sting has not been chokeslammed yet. And of course, Sting just says that he's paranoid and, that he's thinking about it too much. And I have to say, I feel like Sting was kind of not going about his diplomacy in such an effective way, because, he's kind of egging on Savage in a way by kind of just calling him paranoid and crazy and stuff. And then, and then he makes this proposal that he says at Halloween Havoc, if Savage beats Kamala and Luger beats Ming, then the two of them should go at it after that. Randy Savage is immediately up for the plan, but Luger says that Sting is putting words in his mouth. And so Sting goes off on Luger and just starts berating him. He calls him pathetic, and he even mocks his voice. He's like, "Oh, you're putting words in my mouth." And then Sting says he's tired of playing babysitter for the two of these guys. Luger eventually finally agrees to the stipulation to face Savage if they both win their matches at Halloween Havoc. And I just felt like Sting was sort of kind of playing puppet master in a weird way. I felt like he was kind of manipulating these guys and sort of... It wasn't at all like the friendly diplomat that he made himself sound like he was going to be earlier in the show. I have a couple of questions for you guys. What did you think of this segment with the three wrestlers in the ring? And then what are your predictions for Halloween Havoc? Like, do you think they will both win their matches and then face each other? Who do you think will win if they do face each other? I thought it'd be fun to do some Halloween Havoc predictions.
Remind me, this is all getting to a championship match with Hogan?
Kind
I
of.
mean, is it just supposed to be kind of a sideshow before Luger gets there because they have the Giant and Hogan right now?
Yeah, I think so. Like, you know, previously we saw Luger put his title shot on the line in a match with Savage, but then the Giant interfered and, like, chokeslammed Savage, and Luger eventually won. So, yeah, I mean, I think it is just trying to keep these two top stars kind of occupied in a feud while the Giant and Hogan plays out, and we are supposed to get a rematch between Luger and Hogan, so, and it doesn't sound like the Savage Luger Halloween Havoc match, if it indeed happens. It doesn't sound like there's going to be any real, like, stipulation on that, like, winner gets to face Hogan. They certainly didn't say that. It's almost becoming just kind of a grudge feud between these guys, where they just have a lot of, like, personal, you know, that's fine with me. Like, I think Savage can get a good match out of Luger, and I mean, I think Luger's not as bad as I sometimes, like, make fun of him for being either, you know, so.
Well, let me ask you this. Behind the scenes, is there history between Luger and Macho Man?
Yeah, see, I think at this point, I'm not quite sure, but I mean, Luger is the guy that eventually, like, starts dating Elizabeth after Savage and Elizabeth, like, get divorced and stuff. And I think Luger and Elizabeth even, you know, officially get married themselves, and, like, they're living together. And I can't say with 100% authority that we're at that point in the timeline now, but I think we probably are, actually. We're certainly, like, getting there. When Macho Man and Elizabeth got, quote-unquote, married at that one pay-per-view in the early 90s, that was actually after they were already divorced. So, and that was, like, that's at least, like, yeah, I know, right? God, wrestling's so weird, yeah. And that was already, I think, like, 3 or 4 years before this. So would not surprise me if the total package was with Elizabeth at this point. So my feeling is Savage probably is not a huge fan of Luger, but I think Savage had beef with quite a few people probably.
I had no idea Lex Luger and Elizabeth wound up actually getting married.
Well,
like,
don't quote me on that.
Oh, okay, because I know she was with him when she died.
Yes.
That's when all the questions came up, but I didn't know the extent of their relationship. I didn't know if they were just kind of, like, you know, dating or what. But
well, so what do you guys think about Halloween Havoc? Are they gonna win their 2 matches, and are they gonna face off? And who's gonna win if they do face off?
Can I just say it would be even better if, like, one of them didn't win their matches, and that's just the end of the grudge or something. But I mean, it all seems at this point pretty. Like, we know the trajectory.
Like, I could see Meng getting a win over Luger in maybe, like, a schmaz type of thing before I could see Kamala getting a win over Savage. Unless that's also like a schmaz type of situation. But I don't know. I think they're both going to win their matches, and they're going to have their blow-off at Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, my prediction is that they'll both beat their Dungeon of Doom guys in their matches. But then I bet when they have their own match, it'll end in, like, a DQ or some kind of run-in or something, you know, because Luger just beat Savage even though it wasn't clean, you know, on last episode. And so I just don't see Luger getting, like, 2 wins over Savage in a row, but I also don't see them beating Lex when he's going to face Hogan soon. And so, yeah, I mean, I just have a hard time believing that they won't beat Kamala and Ming, especially since Ming got a win over Luger with a foreign object. I feel like Luger needs his receipt. And if Kamala beats Savage, I think I'll just turn the pay-per-view off. I'll be like, screw this. This is the worst booking ever. So then a limo pulls up, and Chris Benoit gets out with his super long 90s mullet. And he kind of looks around and takes a deep breath, and he kind of says, "So this is where the big boys play." And then it just cuts away, and we get this nice, like, Chris Benoit tease, and I loved this little clip. I just wasn't really expecting it. Like, when the limo pulled up, I was like, who's this? And I was like, what? Chris Benoit? And so that just made me excited for, you know, the matches we're going to get to see with him, because, you know, despite all the things that, you know, happened with him and, the tragic story. I mean, he is one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And, like, every time he has a match, it's amazing. So I just can't wait for the Chris Benoit matches. Did you guys have similar feelings here where it, like, really surprised you? Or how did you feel about the little Chris Benoit appearance?
When I saw Benoit coming out of the limo, I thought we were going to get more. I thought we were going to get, like, a promo at least on this episode of Nitro. But yeah, like you said, Benoit is one of the best in-ring guys that I've ever seen. And, we all know how the Benoit story turned out. And I think there's a big production documentary coming out on Benoit. I don't know if it's like an HBO or ESPN documentary, but I think it's going to be focused around CTE and brain damage.
Yeah, so that's actually... So Vice TV has this series called The Dark Side of the Ring. And they already did season 1, and like you can find that all online, like on YouTube and stuff. And season 2 is going to come out soon, and one of the episodes is about Benoit, and they're also doing an episode about Owen Hart. And apparently it's the first time that like Martha Hart, his wife, and like various people are going to actually like weigh in and talk about it. And so I really recommend The Dark Side of the Ring. It's good stuff. But anyway, what were you going to say, Business?
I was just going to say this was Benoit's actual introduction to the WCW.
Yeah, this is the...
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And I kind of liked that it was so, like, brief and just kind of like a little teaser, because I feel like nowadays in wrestling, they don't really do that to you. They kind of, like, they, like, overexpose people to you. And, like, you kind of... You don't feel like you really like are missing somebody, or like you never feel like you're really teased by something. It's always kind of like, okay, well, we just got everything right there in like the 15 minutes, and they do so much more. Everything's just more. It's all just oversaturated. There's more pay-per-views. There's less build. The only thing they don't do more of is leave you wanting more. And like and like it's kind of it's just kind of a problem, I feel like. And this was such a great example of like just like 15 seconds of like Benoit getting out of this limo. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. Like, I can't wait. Give me more Benoit. I want it,
Was he coming from ECW before he went to WCW?
Yes, I believe that is correct. So
they have like a little, I don't know if there's a pipeline or what going on with ECW and WCW, but they have several guys kind of coming in there.
Yeah, and I think WWF Raw in a little while is also going to have kind of an ECW thing going on, where ECW will actually kind of like show up and sort of like have a little mini invasion, which is something I didn't really even like know about until like pretty recently. I think Paul Heyman, he was doing whatever he needed to kind of keep ECW afloat, and I think that did involve dealing with Bischoff and McMahon and kind of having talent exchanges. But I sort of feel bad that like we just had Eddie and Malenko and Jerry Lynn and Sabu and Benoit. It's like, man, they are just like stripping ECW of like all of their like greatest guys. I'm happy for it. We're going to get to see Benoit do some classic stuff. The third match we get is Big Bubba Rogers and Road Warrior Hawk. And I think like even compared to like Shark and Sting, this was the match you just knew was going to be the least important. We did get a Disco Inferno appearance. He comes out and he interrupts and starts dancing.
Easily the best part of the segment.
Oh yeah, definitely. Disco made this whole thing work. So he comes out, he's doing his disco dancing. Heenan's loving it. Bischoff's hating it. I just love how much Bischoff hates it. I don't know why. I think that's funny. But Bubba comes out and he kind of glares at Disco. He doesn't really give him too much attention. But then when Disco's being ignored, he whips out a boombox and like turns it to full volume so he can still like have his music going. And then Hawk comes out and kind of ignores Disco as well. But then Disco steals a kid's hat and like hangs it from one of Road Warrior Hawk's spikes. And so Hawk's walking around with this like hat hanging off of his spikes, and I guess that was Disco's way of punking him or something. Hawk kind of notices it when he gets to the ring, and he's, a little salty about it. But then basically the match is extremely short. Like Bubba takes control in the beginning of the match, and Hawk seems a little slow on the uptake, but Bubba's kind of in control for most of the match. And then Disco runs out and gets up on the apron and starts doing his disco dancing. And at that point, Hawk has had enough of disco and just proceeds to sort of beat the hell out of him. But as a result of getting distracted by disco, Hawk gets counted out of the match and loses to Bubba. I like how Hawk was ripping up Disco's like expensive silk shirt. You know, Bobby Heenan was doing all this work to put over how nice Disco's silk shirt was, and then Hawk just like rips it off and you know, beats the hell out of him. I noticed that Kurosawa got another shout out for breaking Hawk's arm. I think Bischoff was the one who said that. I also noticed that Heenan, like me, Heenan was kind of calling Sting out about, you know, kind of being a shit stirrer who was kind of stirring the pot and, you know, kind of egging on Savage and Luger. And, you know, Heenan even makes a theory about Sting and the Taskmaster being in cahoots. I don't really foresee that being the way things are going to play out. Like, I just really don't think they're going to have Sting turn heel. Does not seem likely. But what did you guys think about Bubba, Hawk, and Disco?
I like the disco part. I could hardly remember the other part. Like, I do not remember the match at all, other than where disco was involved.
I mean, it was like a minute and a half long, so.
I just thought it was pretty funny how Disco impacted the match and got Hawk to get counted out, but it was kind of weak. I mean, extremely weak.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get a Disco Hawk match, perhaps, but I don't see that going very, very well for Disco. All right, so then Mean Gene is in the ring, and he introduces Hulk Hogan, who comes down, and Hogan is wearing all black, which is a serious bit of foreshadowing. As we all know, when he becomes Hollywood Hogan, he's always decked out in black. And so this might have been a way to kind of test the waters on that. And I noticed that at least a decent portion of the fans were booing him. It was certainly a mixed reaction, at the least. Maybe that was because he was wearing black, and I think that's kind of what Mean Gene was trying to play off, is he's like, oh, I've never heard such a crowd reaction for Hulk Hogan before. They're clearly reacting to your outfit. And I was kind of like, they might just be reacting to him, Gene. But Gene tries to play it off and protect his baby face in the ring. I love how Hogan tells Mean Gene to shut up. And he also says that he doesn't want Jimmy Hart to say anything. He's like, Jimmy Hart, my best friend and confidant, I don't want to hear a word out of you, brother. And I thought that was kind of funny. It's like, you're my best friend, but shut the hell up, you know. Hogan mentions the big nasty giant again and again, and he explicitly mentions slamming Andre, who is being booked as the Giant's father. He says he wants a piece of the Giant right now. But Mean Gene informs him that the Giant has been barred from the building. But Hogan says if he's a real Giant, then he'll find his way in. Then Hogan kind of goes off, gives us a history lesson about Hulkamania and how it was nearly killed off by a, quote, promoter in New York with a huge ego, which is clearly Vince McMahon. But now he says that the little Hulkamaniacs are keeping it strong. They are growing into redwoods and getting bigger and making WCW bigger too, but the Taskmaster and the Giant are trying to chop down those trees. At one point, he also compares burying Hulkamania to burning the American flag. I was like, Jesus, man. And then he also says he's going to beat up Gorgeous George in heaven. Hulk Hogan was just going off, man. He was just going off. We hear some sirens, and then we see the Zodiac on top of a speeding monster truck with the Chicago police in pursuit. So I read online that WCW did not have any monitors yet so that the fans could see what was happening in the back. And so Mean Gene kind of had to like narrate to those in attendance what was going down. And so I was kind of remembering last time when we talked about the Malenko-Guerrero match and how the fans might have been interrupted by like a Hogan segment on the big screen. And I wasn't sure if maybe that was actually true after all based on what I was reading. But, you know, I'm reading stuff from like the internet, so I mean, who really knows? But it kind of sounds like WCW hadn't quite figured out how to like use their big screen and show fans what was going on backstage and stuff. But so that must have been really weird for the fans in attendance if that was the case. Like, you know, Hogan going off on his promo, but then Mean Gene having to tell them what's going on backstage. Hogan seems completely baffled that the Giant and the Dungeon of Doom are outside. He wants the Giant to come into the arena, but Mean Gene says the police are holding them back. And so Hogan decides that he's just going to go after the Giant himself, and he heads out the ring to apparently confront them backstage. What did you guys think of this?
I like the shadowing of what'll happen with Hogan. I did enjoy that because we got a taste of what it'll be like. But, you know, other than that, the silliness is enjoyable. All the cops and all the work they're doing to try and keep these guys apart. It's fun stuff. I'm starting to feel like it's running its course. And I'm kind of looking forward to Halloween Havoc to bring it more to a climax. But, you know, for now, it's fun.
I like how they're kind of rolling with the punches here when it comes to the crowd reaction to Hogan. And they're kind of, you know, just going with it. They're not trying to force the red and yellow down our throats quite as much. I mean, he's still obviously going to come out in the red and yellow when he's going to wrestle his matches and everything. But you can see a little foreshadowing. I mean, it may not seem like if we didn't know what was going to happen with the NWO coming up and everything, like, it wouldn't seem like foreshadowing, maybe. I don't know. But, yeah, I thought it was a pretty good promo overall, though.
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent promo. I mean, it's interesting because you can see the kind of heelish things that he's starting to do. You know, he's telling Gene and Jimmy Hart to shut up. You know,
Yeah.
He's making a comparison to burning the American flag, which Mean Gene even went like, whoa, come on, you know. And Hogan's like, no, come on, nothing, you know. And then he's saying he's going to beat up Gorgeous George in heaven and just all these kind of heelish things, yeah. And you're right, Tex, like, nowadays they do kind of shove people down your throat. Like, fans were booing Roman Reigns for all these months, and Vince McMahon just kept forcing him as, like, the baby face, like, you know, the face that runs the place, and like fans just didn't want it, but Vince just didn't care, you know. And I feel like back in the day they were a lot better about just like, well, you go out and we'll see if you get over or if you get booed, and that's what will make you, you know. And I think that obviously is a much better way of going about things. I agree with you, Business, that as much as I enjoy the build and how I've praised the build, I see your point about how this is starting to kind of get a little spread thin here. Like, I think they need to kind of get it going. So then, you know, Bischoff hypes up Halloween Havoc and the machine versus machine thing about how we're going to get Hogan and Giant in their monster trucks. There's a big focus on Hogan getting his mustache shaved as opposed to his neck nearly broken. You know, I thought that was kind of funny. We go to the commentary booth and Pepe is wearing a little Bears jersey and a Bears helmet. The police come up to Bischoff and they kind of whisper in his ear and they tell them that they're keeping the Giant and Hogan apart. It's kind of funny that they're using like half the police force to keep two guys in wrestling away from each other. Kind of hard to believe, but also very funny and awesome. Bobby Heenan says the monster truck's tires must be 25 feet high, which I thought was like an amazing exaggeration. And he also says that there are more cops than when they busted Dillinger and Capone. I just love, like, Heenan's hyperbole is just amazing. And then we get our main event of Arn Anderson versus Ric Flair in the steel cage. Before I go into the choreography and stuff, you know, what did you guys think of this main event?
The first thing I noticed was that, you know, the cage didn't look like it was very tall. I was kind of excited for it. I wanted to see how, you know, Ric Flair and Arn would kind of navigate a cage match and kind of incorporate, you know, being in a cage. You know, we're not going to see terribly, you know, high risk stuff. Like, I didn't think we were going to get a leap off the top of the cage from either of these guys, but I was kind of excited for it.
I was looking forward to this. And, you know, generally, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I was wowed by much, but as far as, like, the end of the program, I had fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, like, the in-ring work was pretty normal. You know, they had a lot of kind of chopping each other and throwing each other into the cage. At one point, the fans started chanting, "We want blood," which I thought was pretty awesome.
Is it Flair who is always really good about cutting himself?
Yeah.
Flair was very known for gigging himself and, yeah, having his face all red, and then he'd always get the blood in his bleached blonde hair. That's always a pretty dazzling effect. Yeah, I mean, they were just a lot more into blading back in the day. They like just really don't do it that much anymore. You know, they'll occasionally do it. But so Flair hits a suplex at one point and they're both down for a while. Brian Pillman comes out, tries to climb the cage to interfere, but Flair meets him at the top and knocks him off. Flair returns down to Anderson and goes for the figure 4, but Arn Anderson nails him with something as the camera pans away and then pins him. In the instant replay, they reveal that Arn Anderson had a foreign object, and Mongo says it's some classic Chicago brass knuckles. And I was like, I didn't know brass knuckles were a staple of Chicago, Mongo, but all right. I just thought that was a little weak that we had just pretty recently gotten like Ming using a foreign object from his trunks and beating Luger with it, and now we're getting like the same thing with Arn Anderson. But Anderson wins in kind of a dastardly heel way, and then Flair is super pissed off, so he runs up to the announce table and tears off Bischoff's headset, and he actually breaks the headset, which I thought was awesome. So it like falls apart in his hands, and he's just like holding up the the mouthpiece in his hand and like and talking into it. And I also love how Flair was like yelling at the commentators, like, I don't care about the Bears. Like he was just like burying the Chicago Bears. I thought that was awesome. He yells that he wants a match against Arn Anderson and Pillman next week. So I guess that's a handicap match. Maybe he'll find a cool, like fun opponent and have like a tag match with them. But I just thought this was like awesome Ric Flair stuff. Like just coming up so live, so hot, ripping off the headset, breaking it, just running with that, going crazy, yelling at the commentators about how he doesn't give a shit about the Bears. Like, I just thought the whole thing was great. I actually think the post-match promo was like the best part of the whole match. I kind of feel like the matches we've seen with Flair and Anderson in the past have been better. Even though this was like in the cage and it was supposed to be the big stipulation, I just felt like, you know, pretty typical. Like, certainly not bad, but not a match I would really remember or write home about or recommend to somebody, you know. Nitro kind of went by fast when I was watching it. Maybe some parts could have gotten a little bit more time, but I thought, like, you know, they crammed a lot in, and, you know, it was still, like, pretty decently, like, paced out. I would say Sabu and Mr. JL was pretty much the only good match. The rest were kind of short and mostly inconsequential. 2 of the other matches had interference. I mean, basically, it just seems like the show was trying to advance the angles for Halloween Havoc, but as Business kind of said, like, not much was, like, really advanced, you know, so it kind of feels like things are sort of just kind of dragging out and kind of being a placeholder, time holder. But like usual, I've just been kind of enjoying Nitro, you know. I feel like I love the Benoit tease we got. The Hogan promo was awesome, and Sabu was awesome. So, I mean, yeah. What do you guys think about Nitro?
I agree. I guess I have a question for you. How far are we from Halloween Havoc at this time?
I think we still have 2 more Nitros before it.
Yeah, see that's kind of an interesting thing is, you know, this is the 3rd Nitro out, and we're already showing a little fatigue. I guess we gotta give them time.
I thought Nitro was good. I mean, I really enjoyed JL versus Sabu. And like you said, other than that, the other matches were pretty forgettable in the ring. The main event was okay. But yeah, it just seems like they're trying to get to Halloween Havoc and just trying to find ways to fill the time a little bit.
The 130th episode of Monday Night Raw was a taped show. It was taped during a previous live show in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I think the past 2 episodes we've had have all been from that same location. Surprisingly, though, this show tied WCW in the ratings, so I think we've had 2 ratings ties in back-to-back weeks. This Raw also did a 2.6. We have Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. It starts with this clip of Shawn Michaels appearing at a Survivor Series press conference in Washington, D.C., and he's getting all choked up and kind of teary-eyed about meeting all these kids who see him as a role model, and, like, I don't know, man. I just felt like he came off a little bit douchey. I thought it was, like, a little bit cringy because, you know, he's all like, you know, you wait your whole life for people to think you're important, and then when they finally do, you know, man, I gotta say, it's pretty cool. this has been a good day for me. Just like, you just sound, I don't know, man. I think it was supposed to be like heartfelt and emotional, but I just felt like it was kind of cringy. I mean, do you guys remember this at all?
I do remember it being a little cringy, but hey, he might have been telling the truth, and for you to just, knock on him for being, sincere. Come on, Frank.
Nah, whatever. I'm not a huge, at least this era of Shawn Michaels, I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah, like I feel like, as a kid, I might have bought this a little bit more, but kind of knowing what he was and who he was at this time, at this point in his career, like, yeah, I'm not buying it.
They do a good job of getting Shawn over. Vince McMahon definitely loves him. They have a pretty bosom buddy kind of relationship. And McMahon is just always, the most charismatic, the most resilient, the greatest performer of our generation. Like, he's always just going off about Shawn. So Raw opens up with basically the main event. Like, last week I was mentioning about how, like, they weren't pushing any other matches other than the big 6-man tag, and I had made a prediction that pretty much everything else we were going to get was just going to be jobber and mid-card stuff. And really, we didn't get much else other than this 6-man tag match, so that prediction basically turned out to be true. But right away, we get the Owen Hart, British Bulldog, and Yokozuna versus Diesel, Shawn Michaels, and Undertaker match. We have Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji and Paul Bearer all out there at ringside. So it's a packed ring. They're definitely putting all their energy into this match. Vince McMahon keeps saying, it's a 6-man tag team match extraordinaire. And I gotta say, even though it was taped, McMahon was bringing it on commentary for this like whole opening and the 6-man tag. Like, he was just so pumped, like putting it over so much, and just I really got to give McMahon kudos. I mean, the latter half of the show, everything kind of died down, including the commentary. But for this 6-man tag match, McMahon was bringing it, so kudos to him. We got a USA chant from the crowd at one point, and this one actually made real legitimate sense because we had 3 guys from the United States versus 3 foreigners. Sometimes the fans will do USA chants, and it's like, like the faces won't even be from America or something, or the villains won't even be foreigners or something. At least this one was on point. I did notice this one time in the match where Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart were going at it, and they each hit each other, and then they each released this huge gob of flying spit. It was like it was like one, he punched him, and then there was this huge gob of spit, and then he punched him back, a huge gob of spit. Jerry Lawler had this comment, the faces were dominating the opening of the match, and Lawler made a remark where he said, Christopher Columbus never would have discovered the New World if he knew this was going to go on. And I was like, because I think this was on Columbus Day, but I was just like, that's kind of weird. We also had Waylon Mercy showing up in the aisle, scouting again, I guess. And then Lawler says that Waylon Mercy is out there scouting because Diesel and him are gonna face off on an episode of Superstars. And I was like, what? Like, really? Is it gonna be a non-title match or something, I guess? Like, but we just saw Waylon Mercy lose to Savio Vega. Like, why is he facing your champion?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what the hell? I don't understand Waylon Mercy at all. And then Dean Douglas also wanders out to take some notes. Douglas is obviously scouting Shawn Michaels because they're going to face off at In Your House 4. So that made a little bit more sense to me. And that's a legitimate, I think, Intercontinental title match as opposed to Mercy Diesel, which is just going to be trash. I bet Diesel wins in 30 seconds. But then we get Mr. Fuji doing a nice spot where he alternately waves the Japanese and British flags. I thought
that was awesome.
Yeah, Fuji's great. Diesel gets a hot tag, and he showcases some of his offense against Bulldog, but, Owen cheats and hits Diesel in the back when he runs off the ropes. Bulldog hits a running power slam. Undertaker breaks up the pin, but Yoko takes advantage of the referee being distracted, and he eventually drops a leg drop on Diesel after he dispatches of Undertaker. So Yoko drops the leg drop on Diesel behind the referee's back, and then that allows the British Bulldog to get a pinfall over Diesel, which is leading up to the Bulldog Diesel In Your House 4 match that we're going to get at the pay-per-view. The biggest part of the match is the aftermath, really, which we can get to in a second. But what did you guys think of this 6-man tag team match extraordinaire?
It was weird to me that they let off with this. And then, after this, you end up having Fatu versus Skip. WWF just seems kind of disjointed right now in what they're trying to do in these Raws. But, I mean, the match itself was a little... It's just a little strange seeing The Undertaker in that kind of match, especially at this time. With like Diesel and Shawn Michaels, because I always just consider him kind of a loner, but it was fun to watch. It's just the sequencing of some of the stuff is just weird to me, and I think that just must be a function of how WWF is doing it right now.
I thought the optics of watching like an Undertaker and Diesel teaming up together and like doing a double big boot on somebody, I thought that was really cool to watch. But it is kind of weird seeing Taker teaming up with anyone. I thought it was interesting. We had the King. King mentioned that Jim Cornette looks like Buck Showalter, and he mentioned the Yanks choking that year, and so we are talking about October. They lost to Ken Griffey and the Mariners, and we had a classic Undertaker rope walk. My dad always loved that spot. If there's anything, like, he would just pop in and just like see Taker walking the rope, and he would just start going nuts. Like, well, I don't know why, but he loved watching Undertaker walk that top rope. I mean, we had some nice moves in there, like I thought Yokozuna always threw a nice Samoan drop. He had a big Sambo suplex on Shawn Michaels. I loved Fuji waving the different flags, but I expected him to have like a Canadian flag too for Owen Hart, but he didn't. He had like the British flag and the Japanese flag, which was fine. I thought it was still cool though.
3 flags would have been awesome. Like if Cornette had one and Fuji had 2, and they were just parading around waving them, that would have been great. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned some of the spots, like the double boot from Taker and Diesel, because that had slipped my mind, and I remember watching that and being like, I bet that has never happened in another match, those 2 guys doing a double boot together, and that was pretty cool. The Sambo suplex that Yoko gave Shawn was awesome. It was huge. Like, he got him like so high in the air. Shawn is just like amazing at selling and bumping and everything. He makes everything look good. So basically, this was giving Bulldog some credibility leading up to his In Your House match with Diesel. He's the first person to pin Diesel on television in the whole year of 1995. So there's definitely kind of a big deal in that regard. So after the match, we get a huge beatdown from the heels on the faces. So King Mabel runs out, and he and Yokozuna use their big girthy bodies to beat up the Undertaker and squash him in the corner and leg drop him, and then Dean Douglas runs out to get involved, and he beats up Shawn Michaels. He gives him an inverted suplex on the steel steps. Diesel's already in bad shape after the Yoko leg drop, but then Owen and Bulldog just continue to pummel Diesel's unconscious body kind of for the hell of it. The beatdown just goes on and on and on. Like, they are just beating the hell out of the faces in the ring for a good 5 minutes. McMahon is just so upset, this is a travesty, and I can't believe this is happening, and get him out of there, do your job, referee, da da da. And obviously Jerry Lawler's loving it. It really made you want to see the faces get revenge, and it was definitely building up for all these different feuds that we're going to get at In Your House 4. We're going to get Mabel and Taker, we're going to get Douglas and Michaels, we're going to get Diesel and Bulldog.
I think that attack on Undertaker is going to wind up having him wear that mask. Like, when they kept leg dropping him on his face and they had all the paramedics out there and all that.
Shit.
Well, yeah, because I think at some point a Mabel leg drop did break his orbital bone. And so he actually had to wear that mask for real. And I love that mask. Like, the Taker in the Phantom of the Opera looking mask is I think that's one of the coolest Taker looks we've ever had. Granted, breaking your orbital bone would suck. That would be super painful. But it did lead to this awesome look for The Undertaker, and it added a lot of extra heat to the Taker-Mabel feud and everything. I think you might be right, Tex, because I remember that Taker definitely had that mask on at the Survivor Series that's going to be coming up. So I think we might even see it in your house, yeah. So now, after this beatdown from the heels on the faces, Raw takes a significant turn for the worse. Basically, they just kind of recap the footage of Isaac Yankem attacking Bret Hart at the end of the Bret Hart-Jean-Pierre Lafitte match from last week's Raw. They're kind of recapping Bret Hart and Lawler kind of going at it. And I love how during the recap, they kind of show Lawler, like, ripping off his jacket. And Lawler says, oh, yeah, when Bret Hart saw that body, he almost ran to the back. And I just thought that was
hilarious.
That was hilarious. Yeah, that was hilarious. McMahon informs us that Yankem and Bret will face off in a steel cage match next week. And the stipulation is if Lawler interferes, he's going to be put inside of his own smaller cage. I didn't quite get exactly how that was going to work. It sounded almost like the cage might be like suspended or something. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what happens with like Jerry Lawler getting put in this like small cage and stuff. I thought that was just a weird but funny stipulation. And then we get all this footage of Yankem and Bret's match from SummerSlam a few months prior to this. And it's a pretty good chunk of that match. And then McMahon and Lawler are just like doing new commentary for it, like on Raw. And I just wrote down in my notes like, boo. Like, this is like one of the worst things that Raw has done since we started doing this show together. And then after that, McMahon recaps the WWF benefit for underprivileged youth at Madison Square Garden during the past weekend. That I actually was like, okay, that's nice. That's heartfelt. That has some pathos. That actually got me a little more than the whole Shawn Michaels thing from earlier. Then, I guess because they realized they needed to fill more time on this TV taping, we get a Fatu versus Skip match. And, you know, obviously Sonny is out there with Skip. Before I go into the whole choreography of this, I guess, jobber match, mid-card match, what did you guys think of Fatu versus Skip?
Honest to God, I hardly remember it.
You know, I don't remember that gimmick for Fatu and that look. I think I remember seeing it maybe on like one pay-per-view or something like that as a kid, but it brought me back. I was like, really? And so I was kind of, you know, I saw him coming out and all that. I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be one of those matches. It's always good to see Sonny out there. And I thought the finish was good because Fatu splattered Skip with that splash from the top rope.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely splattered him.
Yeah, you're right about this Fatu gimmick, Tex. You know, so the first taste of Fatu we get in the WWF is with the Head Shrinkers. Pretty cool tag team, actually.
Yeah.
And then, you know, eventually we'll get Fatu as Rikishi, which is probably his most popular, well-known gimmick. And so, yeah, in this interim between the Head Shrinkers and Rikishi, yeah, Fatu is basically this man who's making a difference. It has a little bit of a Men on a Mission kind of vibe, where it's like he's sort of a community activist, or, you know, he's making a difference on the community or something. It was weird. Probably the most noteworthy part of the match is that Skip kept trying to like hit Fatu in the head, like with elbows and punches and headbutts, but in wrestling kayfabe, you can't hit a Samoan in the head because they're impervious to that kind of thing, and it'll actually end up hurting you. And so Vince McMahon even calls Skip an idiot for continuing to try this tactic. Sonny does a little interference at times to try to, you know, get in the way of Fatu's plans. Skip fails to do his superplex from the top rope because Fatu is too large. That allowed Fatu to counter, and as Tex said, you know, he gave him a big splash and won the match. After losing so much to Barry Horowitz, Skip has definitely become a jobber for the rest of the roster. And from what I read online, this was the fourth straight match that he had lost, including to people like Fatu and Marty Jannetty, who would already be considered the undercard of the talent. Poor Chris Candido. At least he's got Sonny at this point. But he's going to lose that too.
That's plenty for now.
That's true. That's true. I would say Sonny would be a good consolation prize if I had to job out to Fatu. I'd be like, well, all right. It's not going to be the case for that much longer, sadly, for Chris Candido. Sonny is going to eclipse him in every way in terms of her popularity, her place in the company. I mean, Sonny's going to become a huge deal pretty soon. She's going to become the most downloaded woman on the internet pretty soon. And she's, going to do all these photo shoots. And after Fatu and Skip, we have McMahon and Lawler recapping the heel beatdown from earlier in the show. We have Doc Hendricks in the back, and he's kind of outside of the Faces locker room, but he won't go in. He won't go in, or he won't show us, obviously because it's taped. But so Hendricks says that Diesel has totally lost his cool. Michaels has collapsed, and the Undertaker looks like all the wind has been taken out of him. Hendricks is trying to play up the fact that the Faces are basically in complete disarray and totally downtrodden. We get an interview with Jim Cornette and the British Bulldog backstage. Inexplicably, Bulldog's wearing this tan baseball cap.
Cornette explains it though.
Wait, he does? What does he say?
Oh, he said it was a gift from Princess Diana.
Oh, I did not notice that. That's funny.
Yeah, toward the end of the promo.
That's funny. Cornette was definitely going off during this. He gloats that the Bulldog has beaten Diesel, which no one else has managed to do, and that Bulldog will take advantage of his first opportunity to win the WWF title. He kind of says, Bulldog's been being held down, and, he's gotten no respect. He's never gotten the chances he deserves, and, he's finally going to prove everybody wrong, and et cetera, et cetera. Bulldog chimes in that Winnipeg is a hellhole. I thought that was funny. And then, out of nowhere, King Mabel shows up. He kind of joins the two other guys, and Mabel says that Bulldog is his homie, and that he has also accomplished the impossible in beating down the Undertaker. I like this heel promo backstage. At least we actually got to see the wrestlers instead of just Doc Hendricks geeking out outside of a dressing room. We get yet another recap of the heel beatdown. And then we transition into McMahon and Lawler hyping next week's cage match between Bret Hart and Isaac Yankem. And that's pretty much it. I enjoyed the 6-man tag match. I enjoyed the Bulldog Cornette promo. But this was just such a one-pony show. I mean, Raw had nothing else to offer you other than that match. I mean, I got to admit it made me a little excited about Bret and Yankem. The little extra Jerry Lawler stipulation. But I was already kind of excited to see Yankem and Bret in a cage anyway. Bret will get a great match out of a somewhat green Glenn Jacobs. And I just think, it should be good. And I think Lawler always adds a lot to a Bret Hart match because I really love the heat that they have between each other. But I mean, what did you guys think of the Cornette Bulldog promo, the Doc Hendricks spot, and Monday Night Raw in general?
I mean, the Cornette Bulldog promo, really enjoyable, and I think Raw needs to up its game a little bit.
I concur. I mean, they definitely were in fill time mode after the six man tag. But I thought the Jim Cornette promo was good. I mean, as usual, his promos, I generally enjoy them. He keeps going and going, and it's generally awesome. I thought it was funny having King Mabel come out and, say the Bulldog's his homie, and then Bulldog's just enjoying it. He's just loving it. I thought it was funny. But then I had my notes. I was like, that's it, with, a couple question marks. That's it for the show. It was 1.5 matches, kind of weak. So, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Bret versus Yankem in the cage. That should be enjoyable.
Yeah, so that's what we'll get on next week's Raw as the main event. Pretty sure we didn't get any other matches hyped for Raw. But we're going to get Bret and Yankem in a cage, and I'm kind of hoping that Raw will be live. We had that one live show in Grand Rapids, and I was all excited that maybe Raw was turning the corner and going to be doing live shows from there on out, but that wasn't the case. And, as I've said before, I just Raw really loses points for me when it's not live, especially when it's going consistently against a show that is always live. And Nitro is doing a good job of timing out and pacing their shows. Vince can't even match the pacing when he gets to tape in advance. His pacing's worse than the live show he's going against. On Nitro next week, we're going to get Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman, potentially in a handicap match. But maybe it'll turn out to be a tag match. But I think that was the only match that they hyped too. So the rest of the cards for the two shows next week are a little bit up in the air. We'll have to kind of see how they pan out. I think it's kind of hard to not give Nitro the victory this week. As much as I enjoyed the novelty of seeing that 6-man tag on Raw and seeing those, 6 very good wrestlers together all at once, it just really, really, really lost a lot of steam in kind of the second half of it, with just showing old footage and having a Skip Fatu match, which should have been first probably, and just wasting time with Doc Hendricks in the back, not even being able to go interview the faces, and just, as opposed to like closing out Nitro with Ric Flair going absolutely ballistic and challenging 2 guys to a handicap match. And like I said in past weeks, I'm kind of judging things on how excited I am for next week's show. And although Yankum Brett should be good, it just, that doesn't quite make me as excited as what's going on Nitro. So we're 2 weeks out from Halloween Havoc, which we are planning on reviewing together. We're also coming up on In Your House 4. And I think we might actually get In Your House 4 before we get Halloween Havoc. So we'll be reviewing that as well. Any kind of final thoughts on the October 9th, 1995 shows, guys?
I think things can go up from here, I'm hoping. A little improvement.
Yeah, I think both shows could stand to improve a bit. But Nitro was the clear winner. I'm kind of curious if the WWF is booking a cage match in response to Nitro having a cage match. It seems kind of curious to me. I mean, how often do you really see a cage match on Monday night?
My favorite part about the WWF cage matches is I love that big blue cage that they have. It's such like a distinct thing from that time period of WWF, and the wrestlers actually refer to it as Big Blue. And it's apparently a very unforgiving cage, and it's like way, way, way sturdier and more painful than the chain link cage that a lot of other people like WCW are using. Well, we'll be back soon to do the October 16th episodes of the two shows next time, and then also stay tuned for our pay-per-view reviews, which should be very fun. I'm Frank Incensed for Big Business and Big Tex. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.